What if I told you that the most devastating thing an empath can do to you isn't an explosion of rage, isn't a tearful confrontation, isn't even a single harsh word? It's silence. Complete, calm, irreversible silence. Stay with me, because what Carl Jung discovered about this exact phenomenon will change how you understand human connection forever. Carl Jung said that the deepest transformations are always the quietest ones, and nowhere is this more hauntingly true than when an empath decides, without anger, without drama, without a single trembling word, to remove you from their life. Most people never see it coming, and by the time they realize what's happened, the door has already closed. Permanently. Here's what most people fundamentally misunderstand about this moment. And trust me, by the end of this, you'll never look at a quiet goodbye the same way again. According to Carl Jung, every human being possesses what he called the feeling function, the capacity to assign value to experiences and relationships. In most people, this function operates in the background, barely noticed. But in empaths, it dominates everything. They don't just interact with people. They invest in them emotionally, spiritually, energetically. Every relationship becomes a sacred contract in the empath's psyche. And that's precisely why, when an empath cuts you off without anger, it means something most people cannot begin to comprehend. Jung discovered that anger is actually a surface emotion. It belongs to what he called the ego's defense structure. When someone leaves in anger, they're still attached. They're still invested. The rage is proof that the emotional cord hasn't been severed. There's still fire, still connection, still a thread that could be pulled to bring them back. But when an empath leaves in peace, that's an entirely different psychological event, and what Jung found about it is absolutely chilling. Carl Jung described a process he called the death of the projection. It's the moment when someone stops seeing you as who they hoped you were and finally accepts who you actually are. For most people, this realization comes with grief, with resistance, with desperate attempts to deny the truth. But for the empath who has been pushed beyond their limit, this death happens quietly, almost surgically. They don't hate you. They simply stop believing in the version of you they created, and that, according to Jung, is far more final than any argument could ever be. Because you can recover from someone's anger. You cannot recover from someone's clarity. But here's where the psychology becomes absolutely profound. Listen carefully, because this next part changes everything. According to Carl Jung's research on the collective unconscious, certain decisions transcend the personal. They come not from the ego, not from emotion, not from reactive pain, but from what Jung called the self with a capital S, the deepest, most authentic core of a person's being. When an empath cuts you off without anger, they're not making an emotional decision. They're making a spiritual one. Jung understood that the self operates beyond the reach of manipulation. You can argue with someone's ego. You can trigger someone's wounds. You can exploit someone's fears, but you cannot negotiate with the self. It doesn't bargain. It doesn't waver. It simply knows. And when the self has decided that a relationship no longer serves the soul's growth, no amount of apology, no amount of charm, no amount of promises will reverse that decision. It's not stubbornness. It's what Jung called alignment with one's deepest truth. And it is absolutely irreversible. Here's what will send chills through every part of your being. Carl Jung observed that when someone reaches this level of psychological clarity, their external behavior becomes eerily calm. There are no tears, no accusations, no long letters explaining their pain. There's just absence, and that absence carries more weight than 1,000 words ever could. The narcissist expects rage because rage is familiar. The manipulator expects tears because tears mean leverage. The toxic person expects a door left slightly open because that crack is all they need to slither back in. But the empath who has reached what Jung called psychic resolution gives them none of it. Nothing to argue against. Nothing to twist, nothing to exploit. Just gone. And here's the part that most people are completely unprepared for. According to Carl Jung's theory of individuation, every act of authentic self-preservation brings a person closer to wholeness. When the empath walks away in peace, they're not losing a relationship. They're gaining themselves. Every quiet departure is an act of integration. Every calm goodbye is a step toward what Jung called the realized self. The empath isn't punishing you with their silence. They've simply reached a place where your presence costs more than your absence. And they've made the calculation, not with bitterness, but with the devastating precision of someone who has finally learned to value their own peace above someone else's potential. Jung called this the withdrawal of psychic investment. It's when the soul retrieves every piece of energy it had placed in another person and redirects it inward. The empath takes back every prayer they whispered for your growth, every tear they shed over your choices, every sleepless night they spent trying to understand your cruelty. They gather all of it back and they pour it into themselves. And what emerges from that reclamation is what Jung termed the sovereign individual. Someone who no longer needs anyone to complete them. Someone whose wholeness comes from within, not from the approval or presence of those who repeatedly proved themselves unworthy of trust. But here's the final piece, and it's what makes this entire process truly spiritual. Carl Jung spent his life studying the intersection of psychology and the sacred. He understood that certain human decisions carry numinous weight, meaning they vibrate with something beyond rational explanation. The empath's quiet departure is one of those decisions. It isn't strategic. It isn't calculated. It comes from a place so deep within the psyche that even the empath themselves can't fully articulate why the moment arrived when it did. They just know, the way you know when a season has changed. The way you know when something that was alive has finally ended, not with violence, with completion. Jung said that the soul always knows what it needs to heal. And sometimes healing requires the courage to release someone you love without turning that release into war. The empath who cuts you off without anger has made the most sacred choice a human being can make. They've chosen their own soul over someone else's chaos. And that decision, according to everything Carl Jung understood about the human psyche, is not rejection. It's resurrection, not of the relationship, of the self. Carl Jung wrote that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But he also understood that some substances, when combined, don't transform. They corrode. And recognizing the difference, choosing transformation over corrosion is the highest act of spiritual intelligence an empath will ever perform. So if an empath has ever walked away from you without anger, without explanation, without looking back, understand this. That wasn't weakness. That wasn't indifference. That was someone who loved you enough to leave before the love destroyed them. And that kind of departure isn't personal. It's sacred. Thank you so much for staying with me through this exploration. If these words reach something deep inside you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share this video with someone who needs to hear this today.